Okay, so let's go ahead and continue with the second set of strings which contain our commands. So now we're going to go ahead and create a string for the second path. So path 0, 1. And this is a bit of a more complex path than the previous one. We will use an environmental variable in Windows. Let me just go ahead and show you what that is. So if I do, let me just go ahead and cd, that doesn't work. Okay, let's clear the screen. So on this test machine for the course, the user is test, but you do not know the username of a machine where the USB stick is going to be plugged in. And for this script to be placed into the startup folder, you need to know that username. In order for us to get the path, you will need to use an environmental variable, which is unique across the board. So you do, let me just show you what that returns. So env colon user profile. And there you go. It actually returns the current user's folder. And that's what we need in order to basically get to the startup folder of that user. Okay, so no big deal. I'll just go back. And let's go ahead and begin typing it. So we will use the $sign, env colon user profile, and it's going to be colon, and then we're going to go into the app data / roaming Let's move onwards. So Microsoft and Windows. Microsoft and then Windows. Windows, and then it's going to be start menu, and then it's going to be programs. So programs, it's a bit of a longer path, so bear with me here. And it's going to, then we're going to go into startup, and then it's going to be windows.vbs. So this is the Visual Basic script that we're going to run. So why are we creating an independent Visual Basic script? Because you can't really set a PowerShell to run at startup. Rather, instead, you create a small Visual Basic script which starts the PowerShell script at startup. Simple as that. Why can you not run a PowerShell script at startup? I don't know. We've had so many problems with that. First of all, the script pops open and sometimes it doesn't run and there are problems. So we just decided to create a small Visual Basic script which will in turn run the PowerShell script. No big deal. So it saves us a lot of time in terms of debugging and figuring it out. It is possible to actually not just interpret the PowerShell script, but rather instead to compile the PowerShell script and then run it as a system service. But unnecessary complications I always tend to avoid as they are extremely time consuming. So string VBS content. And this is something that we will have to create in Windows and then just copy the code here. Once we create a Visual Basic script, we will need to filter it a little bit to fit it into a C string, to a string in C, and then we're going to place it here. So we're just going to skip that for the time being and continue onwards. I'm going to go ahead and type in the next one. So string create VBS. And here we have a bit of a longer path again, but since we're doing nothing new, I'm just going to go ahead and copy paste it. The code will be available on GitHub, so if you want, you can take it from there. It will be under the GPL license, so no need to register or anything like that. You'll be able to just access it. It should be PowerShell.exe echo null, and this entire path here is the same as the path above, but there is a backtick here, which is an escape character for space when running PowerShell commands. So do not forget this backtick. It is very important. Without it, this will all fail. Hilarious, I know, but true nevertheless. I've had so many problems with that backtick because the backslash is already reserved for system paths, and they apparently had to put a backtick as an escaping char for the other chars, which is very frustrating to say the least. But okay, no big deal. Just a small change there, just put a backtick and that's it. So once again, we're doing the same thing. We're just echoing nothing. We're just echoing nothing into the VBS file, which is in the startup folder. We're just creating the file basically. And the last string here will be run VBS. Now, run VBS is something that we need in order to basically, once we plug USB in, all these files will be created, generated, placed into their proper positions, but then we need a command to actually run them. So once we run them, when they are placed in the startup folders, they will run anyway upon the next system reboot. But we would like to start it during the current session as well. So that's why we have the last string run VBS. Perhaps the name is a bit inappropriate because it's actually running a PowerShell script, but it doesn't really matter. As I said, string names are arbitrary, and you can put, instead of run VBS, we could have placed there sheeps run merry circles round the fence or whatever. That could be the name of your string for all I care, and for all the compiler cares really. So PowerShell.exe, and look, if this script, for example, I'll explain that in a second. So Windows Windows style with a single S, hidden, and then you basically just require this path that you can take from here, no big deal, and place it here, close the quote marks, and semicolon at the end. So if this, without this, suppose this script succeeds and you're connected to the internet and it succeeds in downloading the keylogger and installing it and configuring everything, that's fine. You're just going to see a short pop-up window and that's all that you're going to see. But suppose that the machine does not have internet connectivity, you will have an open window that is waiting for internet connectivity, which is bad. And that is why we're adding Windows style hidden, so that that window is not actually being displayed. It might pop instantaneously when you plug the USB in, but that's about it. Nothing else will be visible. Might pop. Just for like a blink of an eye. And that's it. But it doesn't matter since you're already plugging the USB in and so much is happening on the screen for the time that the USB is plugged in. A short pop doesn't actually mean anything here. Okay, so that's as far as the strings are concerned. That's all of our commands which we will need to run. We have stored all of them pretty much in these variables, except for this PowerShell script, which we need to create in Windows, and for the VBS script, which we also need to create in Windows. So once we have created those two, we will copy them here, and they will be populating these strings. Before we do that, we're gonna call a series of functions down below, and that will be a combination of functions pow_admin and populate file, and we will be calling those functions and then passing these strings up above. So we're gonna do that in the follow-up tutorial.